Today we're going to be taking this pretty boring standard float and adding a little colour. Now I'm going to be using this wind beater bobber here, but you could use something like a bodied waggler, a perch bobber or an Avon style float, but you do want something that's got a little bit of girth to it. First step, we're going to take some sandpaper and just rough up the original paintwork. You want to be careful not to go all the way down to the balsa wood, as when you apply the acrylic paint to it, it will soak into the wood and begin to swell. Next step is just to clean off any oily fingerprints we've left behind from sanding. Now what I like to do next is to just give the whole float and the area that I intend on painting a few thin coats of white acrylic just to help the colour pop. If you're using a light coloured float already, you may be able to skip this step. And always remember, if you intend on using these floats in the water, it's important to give them a clear coat afterwards to make sure that they're 100% waterproof. Now I know that some of you are going to be wondering where our original fishing show has gone, but obviously, as you all well know, a lot has gone on in the world lately and it's not been the easiest thing to pull off. We do intend on bringing it back very soon and we've got big plans in mind, so please, just be patient. And if this is the first time you've joined our channel, I'll leave some links in the description so you can go and check out our past fishing adventures. Now we don't have to be super neat here, we just need to remember to allow each coat to dry properly before we apply the next. You can speed this process up by introducing a hairdryer. Let's add a little colour to this float. And the first colour we're going to add is a coastal blue, but you could add any blue that you wish, just keep in mind that this is going to be our sky later on. I'm going to start at the top of the body and just work my way down to around about halfway. Now when it comes to the stem of the float, you can paint that whichever colour you wish. But I'm going to use the same blue here as I'm using as the sky, just to help to blend everything in together. If you don't get perfect coverage on the first go, let it dry, or as I'm using here, a hairdryer to help the process, and give it a second coat. Next I'm going to be taking this grasshopper green and we're going to use that as our base colour for all the grass and foliage. We're going to take our grasshopper green and we're going to start from the bottom of the float and work our way up to the blue that we painted earlier. We don't need to overlap this or worry about any gaps in between, because we'll be using a different colour to add the water in this area later. For the water I'll be using cool blue, but again you can use whichever blue you wish. Just try and make sure that it's a little bit lighter than the blue you use for the sky. You could do that just by adding some white to the original colour you used. Once you've decided where you want your water to be, begin applying the paint. Also, we don't want perfect straight lines here. After all, this is a river, and no river I've been on has had a perfect straight riverbank. Now, using the same grasshopper green as before, we're going to start applying it to the bank on the other side of the river. Again, not worrying about any gaps between the distant bank and the water, as we'll be filling those in with some detail work shortly. The next colour we're going to use from the palette is a tan. With the tan, we're going to paint a very thin line between the water and the grass area that we've just painted to fill in any gaps and to give that riverbank look. Using the same colour, I'm going to paint a small island in the middle of the river. Once everything's dry, I'm I'm going to use a watered down white to start adding some clouds to our sky. With the same watered down white, I'm going to follow that thin tan line that we painted earlier to where any of the water would break, also taking this chance to add any ripples to the water. Now with a darker green, I'm using holiday green here, but you can use any darker green that you've got, or just add a little bit of black to the original green that you first used. And with this, we're going to start adding in some foliage detail. We'll paint in a slightly darker bush here at the very bottom of the bobber and add some long grass detailing to where our first bank meets the waterline. With some cinnamon brown and a detailing brush, I'm going to paint a tree trunk and some limbs onto the island that we painted earlier. Once dry, I'll clean the detailing brush and use it with the dark green that we just used to fill in the foliage around the tree. Once our first layer of foliage is applied to the tree, we can start adding some detailing to the far bank. By adding a very small amount of black to the dark green that we was using, I begin to add some shadows to the foliage that we applied to the tree. And then the same goes for our grass detailing on the riverbank and the bush that we've placed at the bottom of the bobber. Using a daffodil yellow, I begin to add some blossom to the tree and some flowers to our grassy areas. If like me you feel as though you've overdone it with the tree, you can always go in later with the green and darker green to cover some of that yellow up. Now, with some party pink, I'm going to add some flowers to the bush at the bottom of the bobber. Finally, I use some straight black, and I tidy up any overspill that we might have here at the bottom of the float, and add any small details to the tree or anywhere else that you feel might need some dark shadows. And there we have it. But don't forget, if you wish to use these floats on the water, you must give them a good clear coat with something that's going to make sure that they're 100% waterproof. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, and if you wish to see some of our fishing adventures, the links are in the description below. Take care.